Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Eric B. Horn, and welcome to today's small business live stream. And the topic for today's stream is developing contingency plans for your business. Once again, that is developing contingency plans for your business. So, for the reason why I developed this particular live stream is because I feel that every business, small, medium, or large, needs to have some sort of contingency plan. So, what I'm going to do today is break down the concept of what a contingency plan is and specific areas on where you should have a contingency plan. And if anyone is actually joining on this live stream, you can actually chat me if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything that I break down when it comes to the concept of developing a contingency plan for your business. So, at a high level, what a contingency plan is a list of events and a list of actions that you need to take if a certain event will happen that could potentially damage the life of the overall business. Let me say that again. So, what a contingency plan is at a high level is a list of actions that you need to take based off of a specific event to keep your business going in the right direction. Okay. So, I learned the concept of a contingency plan while I was working as a information security specialist back before I started to do career development and business development. I was an IT geek, hands down, right? So my last job before moving into the career and business space, dealing with information security, and I was dealing with information security way before it became a more of a popular thing or more of a needed item when it comes to businesses, right? And the concept came where I used to work for an executive leadership recruiting firm, and they needed, it was a global firm, and they needed for their information security program, in the event that something may happen, for example, if there was a power outage or if there was a hurricane, any type of natural disaster. This is even before the 2020 pandemic. We also had to prepare for some type of global pandemic, but it was a list of actions that we need to take in a certain time frame to make sure that the business stays afloat. Okay. And I vividly remember a time where we had to use these contingency plans when there was a power outage. Now, the power outage occurred for a day and a half, and our contingency plan, have based off of the testing and things that we did, it stated that the business would fail if we didn't have a generator or a generator company in a certain amount of time to bring the business back up. So it's a lot of boring planning because it's one of those, is rather to have it than need it in a sense. But if you did need it, it was probably one of the most critical things. So during my time as an information security professional, we had to use those contingency plans a couple of times. It was more geared towards power and think, if I'm not mistaken, it was a contingency plan in the event if the CEO of any of the executives team would leave, what are the certain actions that we need to take to make sure that the business stayed afloat. So this is for a global recruiting firm. But I got to thinking, when it came to small businesses, every small business needs to have a contingency plan in place. Now, it doesn't have to be as robust as a global company, but in the event that something may happen in your business, what plans do you have, or what actions do you need to take to make sure that your business stays afloat, right? So, what I'm going to do today is talk about three areas that you would need to have a contingency plan in. Then I'll give you a rough framework on how to actually go about creating contingency plans. Once again, this is not going to be super robust, but just having the understanding that no business is bulletproof, no business is foolproof, and things will happen in your business in certain areas. So this is more of a proactive approach on how you can go about that, as opposed to reacting, because the world reacted and most businesses reacted when it came to the pandemic, because who would ever think that a global pandemic would happen? So you wouldn't even think about the things that you would need just to keep your business afloat. This is the reason why a lot of businesses fail, because they didn't take the time out just to say, what will happen if, well, how would the business stay afloat, or how much time do we need or have to make sure the business will move in the right direction? Okay. So the first thing when it comes to contingency planning for your small business is identifying the potential risks and disruptions. So the best way to do that regards to your business, you can go to Google and just type in the top 5 or top 10 reasons why your type of business would fail. That is clearly identifying some of the things that could possibly happen in your business. Of course, we doesn't want that to happen, but these are some things that can possibly happen in your business. If you don't have certain things in place, your business would fail. This is more of a risk assessment and just knowing, right? And I'm saying that you necessarily have to have robust planning and robust research to figure out what are the things that could possibly disrupt your business, but there is no excuse on why you shouldn't know what those possible things are, specifically to your business in the industry that you are in. This is just basic research that you can do yourself as the business owner, or get somebody else to do it for you. You can go on Fiverr or hire someone just to find out what are some of the risks and some of the potential disruptions that you can incur in your business. Identifying that shouldn't take you any more than maybe an hour to 2 hour tops to identify those things. And once you do identify those things, not saying you have to have a full-fledged plan, but relate with some of those things or some of those gaps that could potentially put your business out of business, and parallel that to your overall business. Some of those things could be uh, a lack of funding or a lack of consistent funding. It could also be you have someone actually stealing from the overall business. It can also be in the event of a power outage or a natural disaster. What are some of the things that can actually take your business out? You would want to identify those things so you have the best understanding of what potentially could come your way. The next thing would be, after you have identified some of those potential risks and disruptions, you would want to establish some priorities and recovery objectives. Once again, you want to keep this high level. Out of that list, and after you identified the overall priorities, what are the top 3 or the top 5 things that could potentially take your business out? The simple question is, what can you do about that? We're not implementing these things. We're just at a high level identifying what those priority things are and what you could possibly do to recover from these particular things. So once again, it can go through researching on Google, or better yet, if you are a one person business, you would want to utilize Google again to set the priorities and figure out what are the recovery objectives. However, if you do have a staff and you have a team, I would highly recommend, once you identify, excuse me, once you identify the priorities, bring these priorities to your team and have a roundtable, excuse me, have a roundtable discussion with them to get their insight and figure out the objectives, excuse me, the priorities that you've created. Do they match with what they think? 9 times out of 10, if you bring a certain idea or a certain concept, excuse me, certain idea or a certain concept to your team, they can highlight it and identify things that you may not be able to do. That's the purpose of a overall team. But nonetheless, bring these priorities to your team and have a roundtable discussion to get their insight, get their input, and figure out some other creative ways that you can recover from these disastrous, excuse me, objectives, right? And then you want to develop strategies and solutions. With the input that you have received from your team or the research that you got based off of defining the recovery objectives, this is probably the most critical thing. A certain event has happened, you have an idea of what you can do. Who are the people or the individuals that you can put in place to make this recovery piece happen? In some instances, it may be your internal team. In other instances, it may have to be an external vendor that you can actually contract that can potentially help you. Even if you have a document with, for example, if the power goes out and you know for a fact, based off of your business, your power needs to be back up in 48 hours. Even if you have a simple Word document with whatever the challenge is, and then the company and their contact information that can actually resolve it, that is even a step. That's a step in the right direction. Once again, you don't have to have the full-fledged plan when it comes to a company in corporate America. But once again, as a small business, if the lights go out, we have 48 hours to get things back up or the business will fail. Who are the primary and the secondary points of contact that you can reach out to possibly resolve the problem? Okay, it can be that overall, that simple. But once again, having that document in your office or in your phone or somewhere that's readily available, that can help out. Because once again, having this contingency plan, you would rather have it and not need it, but then need it than not have it. Because these are the simple things that they're essential things. They're simple but essential things that you need to have in place in the event that something may happen. Once again, contingency planning is nothing but forward thinking and being in a proactive state as opposed to being in a reactive state. Because once again, as a reminder that I said at the beginning of this live stream, COVID was probably one of the biggest reactionary states when it comes to both small and large corporations, because no one thought that in 2020 we were going to have a global pandemic and businesses will have to shut down and companies would have to be shut in and be in the house. Now, most businesses who had a contingency plan, who had their forward thinking, they may have not seen the full path, but they probably would have had a better understanding of what they need to do to put people in places so the business, even though based off of what has happened, the business can still move in the right direction, which is very, very critical. Okay. So once again, at a very high and simple level, the three things that you can do when it comes to creating a contingency plan for your business. Once again, one, identify the potential risk and disruptions. You need to have what could possibly take your business out in your industry in the event that something may happen. And once again, the best way to do that is look at people who has similar businesses than yours and they failed. Do some research, draw up some case studies, get the information that you need so you have a clear understanding of, based off of my business, if this happens in my business can potentially fail if I don't have certain pieces in place. Once again, number two, you want to establish what those priorities are. What are the top 3 to 5 priorities that you need to set, and recovery options? Once again, you want to identify what could potentially take your business out, and then how can you recover, or who can actually help in that recovery process. And last but not least, you want to develop strategies and solutions. What are the strategies, or what is the action that you can take by yourself or in conjunction with external vendors that can help get your business back online as quickly as possible, right? So those are 3 critical things that can help prolong your small business, but most small businesses don't think about that because they are more in a reactionary state than anything else. And no harm, no foul, because most people don't even see past 6 months to a year in their business, as opposed to specifically looking at what can potentially disrupt their business. Okay. So I didn't want to take that much time of your schedule because I know it is 7:17 Central Standard Time. But I just wanted to get on here and give you some critical information on one. Ask yourself, do you have a contingency plan in place for your business? Most businesses don't. So you probably answer that quickly. The second piece is that something that you want to put in place for the life of your business? Hopefully anyone that is looking at this live stream or looking at the replay is not in their head up and down, because if you work so hard to build your business, you want to make sure that anything comes your way, both foreseeable and more importantly, unforeseeable, you have some necessary actions that you can take. Knowing is half the battle, because once again, millions of businesses folded based off of the fact of them not being prepared for a pandemic. But who was really prepared for what went on in 2020? I would say a good 10%, and that's being generous globally. Most people were just going on the fly and figuring out what they need to do day by day, as opposed to having a plan, a step-by-step action plan on what they can take. Even though a lot of this isn't the sexy and this isn't the fun part of owning a business. This isn't the stuff that you will put on Instagram or social media, but this is something that you need to seriously think about and put something in place, because having a contingency plan in your business could be the difference of your business thriving and being successful, or your business being another casualty because you didn't have the proper things in place. This is Eric B. Horn, and thank you guys for your time, effort, and energy. If you had any questions, comments, concerns based off of how to create a contingency plan, or if you wanted to work with me on creating a contingency plan, you can click on this QR code that you see at the bottom, and an inquiry form will come up. You can fill out the inquiry form, and we can have an initial discussion on the things that you need to do to have a contingency plan in place. Thank you guys for your time, effort, and energy, and I'll see you guys on the next live stream.